Today I'm going to run through everything you need to know in order to buy a house in 2024, especially things that you likely haven't considered. Now in terms of the actual step-by-step process on how to buy a property, I actually have a video over here that will run through all the stages from conveyancing, stamp duty, brokers, etc. And if you have any questions, please drop it in that video and I will respond to them. But in 2024 things are a little different. And for the purpose of this video, I will also be referring to both residential and investment properties, as they are not the same by any stretch of the imagination. So firstly, let's look at residential properties, which are emotional purchases, the complete opposite, or at least it should be, to investment properties. When we buy a property, it's usually because we want something to call our own. Ever since many of us could understand the English language, schools, teachers, friends, family all speak about how buying a house is the ultimate dream. Once you finish your education, get married and do all that adult stuff. But very few actually question what owning a house entails. And if you run the numbers, you'd be surprised that for many of you watching today, renting could actually be better. But that's a video for next week. Now, if owning a property to live in is the goal, here are some things that you need to factor in. The most obvious one, of course, my friends, is the deposit. If you want to buy a house, 99% of the time, you're going to need some sort of deposit. Even with schemes like the 5% deposits, shared ownership, etc., there's still going to be some level of skin in the game that you're going to need to provide, and most lenders will require from you. Now, when I researched deposits for first-time buyers in the UK, I was a little surprised by the figures. Zoopla stated that first-time buyers needed to save between £26,400 and £144,500. A massive range there. And they then go on to state that the average deposit paid for a 3-bedroom house in 2023 was £34,500 for a 240k house, which is around 15% deposit. And I know money.co.uk stated that the average first-time deposit was around £61,000. But this was early in 2023. So again, high numbers, and let's just assume that you're a first time buyer and your first property isn't your forever home and it's more of a starter home. Even on the low end, you are looking at £34,500. So once you have that figure, you then have to factor in other costs as well. Legal costs. Now this can range from £500 to £2,500 plus. That's quite generic, I know, but these are the prices I paid over the last 11 years. For my residential, which was like a decade ago, it was around £2,500 I remember paying. Now some solicitors will charge based on purchase price, some will have flat fees, so please know this and of course always try and negotiate. Not all will let you do this, but it's worth a try, as some might. Now let's assume you can get that for £2,000, including searches and any sort of insurances that they may ask or require you to take out. That's a lot of money. It's something that you all need to factor in. Next up, we have relocation costs, which may sound trivial, especially if you got a friend with a van or you are the man with a van yourself. But still, these things can rack up and are things that I need you all to consider if buying a house in 2024 is your thing. Now, once you're in and you've paid the majority of these costs and you've got your key and you've done your Instagram post, I don't know what it is, but you're going to get a sudden urge to just spruce up the place. Whether it's renovations, repairs, or just buying things on sale because you convince yourself that you now need it for your new home. Friends, these add up too. So just there, in the past few minutes, we've gone over some costs associated with owning a house, but we have yet to even consider the other costs you are paying each month that I hope you at least think about after this video. Interest on your mortgage. Now let's assume you buy a house for the average UK price, which is around £287,000. And let's assume you put 15% down, which is around £43,000. Your mortgage is £243,950. And the interest you would pay on that property is £184,039 over the full term. Now for you smart ones out there, of course, there's a few caveats to that which I've obviously explained in other videos, so please go and check those out. But it's just something to be aware of and do the maths on before you sign on the dotted line. Now once you're in, you probably know that your salary was a big contributor to you being able to buy that home. So if you was able to get a mortgage of around £240,000, you and the person you're buying the property with, if there is two of you, would need to be earning a combined income of around £48,000 to £55,000, depending of course on the multiplier that the lenders use. Lenders will usually multiply your salary, and this normally falls between 4 and 4.5 times your gross income. So please know, over the next 5, 10, 15 years, if your plan is downsizing or changing jobs, just know your salary is going to be questioned when it comes to refinancing. Now, rather than go into the ins and outs of throwing all that money down and what you could do instead, these are just some basic things that I hope you are all aware of. Moving on, investment properties. Now I will keep this as simple as I possibly can, as there's many ways to invest in property and there's many things that you can look at in terms of criteria. But once you've done your analysis on that property and you're ready to pull the trigger and you've researched it in accordance to your exit, there's always one key metric you need to really know, This is where I say in my videos, if you're a subscriber of the channel, return on investment, your ROI. But for those who like to get a little technical, it can also be ROCE, return on capital employed. But just note, for my videos, I'm essentially referring to the same thing. Now, why this is important is because return on investment essentially means how hard your money is working for you. So for example, if you buy a house for £100,000 all in, and it gives you, let's say, net £10,000 over the year through rent, that would be a 10% return on your investment, meaning you get 10% of your capital back each and every year. Now, of course, with real life examples and mere mortals like you and I, we can't just go out and buy properties with cash all the time. So we sometimes need mortgages. And that figure, if we use 75% loan to value, is going to fall at around £30,000, as it includes stamp duty, fees with your deposit. Now, please do go over that again if you need to, because knowing your ROI, my friends, will allow you to make quicker and much smarter decisions moving forward. And don't just do it in your head like I did. Make sure you're using some sort of analysis tool. Now, once we have this figure, we now need to decide if we think it's a good deal. And by we, unfortunately, I mean you. Is a 10% return on your money good enough for you? Is that a good investment? I mean, it beats the banks, but it also comes with risk. What if a tenant doesn't pay? What if you don't get the rent that you're after? What if a boiler goes in year one? Etc, etc. These are all fair and common concerns that can come true and have for me many times in the past. However, the more risk mitigation you can do when analyzing your deals, the higher the probability of you achieving the ROI you initially hoped for can come true. Now, is 10% on your cash in 2024 good enough for you? I don't know. Let me know below. But until you have a strict criteria on what you feel is adequate based on your risk tolerance, you shouldn't be buying properties. Higher ROIs usually come with more risk. I've seen that in my experience over a decade. And it's understandable. And that's usually because there's more points of failure across that deal or journey. But irrespective of what the anxious investor, your neighbor, friends, or family want as an ROI, knowing your own is key. Stick to your numbers, stay emotionless, I think that's a word, and always use logic. There's great tools I have in my bio if you need that can help you. My own assistance via my program, or even Lendlord, which is free to sign up to, that lets you run the figures on your possible deals. Thanks for watching.